It was supposed to be another quiet night on patrol. The kind where the most thrilling part of your shift is catching a speeder or grabbing a midnight coffee at the 24-hour diner. But at 1:37 a.m., the dispatcher's voice came through the radio, almost trembling. Unit 52, we have reports of a possible break-in at the old Franklin State Asylum. No security presence, but lights flickering inside. Caller disconnected. My stomach tightened. The asylum had been abandoned for over 20 years. Every officer in the precinct had heard the rumors. Ghost stories, alleged satanic rituals, and even the occasional phantom 911 call that led nowhere. But lights? That was new. I grabbed the mic and responded. Unit 52 en route. ETA 5 minutes. The drive out was unnervingly silent. The Franklin Asylum was isolated, set deep in the woods on the outskirts of town. No streetlights, no nearby homes, just an expanse of trees and the occasional howl of wind. My cruiser's headlights barely pierced through the thick fog hanging low over the road. When I pulled into the cracked driveway, the asylum loomed ahead like something straight out of a nightmare. 5 stories of crumbling stone. Its windows were black pits, except for one on the second floor, where I saw a faint flicker of light. Dispatch, this is Unit 52. I'm on scene. Request backup. Backup ETA 15 minutes, Unit 52. Proceed with caution. 15 minutes. I could feel my pulse in my ears. Something about the place felt wrong even from the outside. I approached the main entrance with my flashlight and weapon drawn. The door, once barred by rusted chains, hung open just enough for someone, or something, to slip through. The first step inside was like crossing into another world. The air was thick, damp, and carried the faint metallic tang of blood. My boots echoed off the walls of the sprawling lobby, which was filled with overturned gurneys and remnants of old medical equipment. But what made me freeze wasn't the sight. It was the sound. Soft, rhythmic tapping. It echoed from somewhere deeper inside, too steady to be random. Hello? This is the police. If anyone's here, make yourself known. Silence. The tapping stopped. My flashlight beam caught movement to the left, just at the edge of the light. A figure impossibly tall and thin, retreating down a hallway. Stop! Police! I shouted, chasing after it. As I turned the corner, my blood ran cold. The hallway stretched far longer than it should have, lined with dozens of doors that hadn't been there a second ago. Each one was slightly ajar, and a faint, distorted whisper seemed to seep out from the cracks. And at the end of the hallway, the figure stopped, standing perfectly still. Something about its outline wasn't human. I gripped my radio, whispering, "Dispatch! I need backup now." Static. The figure tilted its head unnaturally to the side, as if listening. Then, in one bone-chilling motion, it turned and opened the last door, disappearing into the black void beyond it. I was left standing in the hallway, alone, every instinct screaming at me to turn back. I stood there for a moment, staring down that impossibly long hallway, my heart racing. My flashlight's beam flickered, and I felt an involuntary shiver climb my spine. Every open door seemed to be watching me, the faint whispers seeping from them growing louder, forming a low, incoherent chorus that was barely human. Against every ounce of self-preservation screaming in my mind, I took a step forward. Dispatch, this is Unit 52. I'm requesting immediate backup. Possible suspect inside. Hallways are changing. Only static answered me. As I approached the first door on my right, the whispers from inside grew louder, and my skin crawled. The door was cracked open just enough for me to see a darkened room beyond. I reached out to push it open, but before my fingers touched the wood, the door slammed shut with such force that the sound echoed down the hallway. I jumped back, my heart pounding. Then I heard it, footsteps. Not mine, not distant, close. I spun around, flashlight darting across the hallway. For a second, I swore I caught a glimpse of something at the far end of the corridor. An elongated shadow slipping into another door. "Police! Show yourself!" I shouted, the words ringing hollow in the suffocating silence that followed. The hallway seemed alive now, the walls almost pulsing like they were breathing. The faint scent of blood in the air grew stronger, metallic and sharp. I moved forward, passing each door as quickly as I could, the whispers rising and falling around me like waves. I reached the door at the end, the one the figure had entered. It was slightly ajar, its surface scratched and warped, as if something had clawed at it from both sides. I took a deep breath and pushed it open. Inside was a room that didn't make sense. It was vast, far too large to fit within the structure of the building. The walls were lined with rusted medical equipment, beds with leather straps, overturned wheelchairs, and cracked mirrors that reflected nothing but darkness. In the center of the room stood a single gurney, and strapped to it was a mannequin. Or at least that's what I thought at first. The thing on the gurney was humanoid, but its proportions were all wrong. Its limbs were stretched unnaturally long, its fingers ending in jagged points. Its face, or what should have been a face, was smooth and featureless, like a mannequin that had been melted. Then it moved. Its head tilted towards me, despite having no eyes to see, and from somewhere deep within it, a sound emerged, a guttural, choked groan that reverberated through the room. I stumbled back, my flashlight trembling in my grip, and that's when the doors on the walls, hundreds of them, began slamming open and shut, the sound deafening, like a hurricane of noise. The whispers turned into screams, overlapping and merging into a single, agonized wail. The thing on the gurney snapped its head to the side, as if listening to the chaos, then slowly began to rise. Its limbs contorted and cracked as it broke free of the straps that should have held it firmly in place. I froze, my feet rooted to the floor. "Get out! Get out! Get out!" I whispered to myself, my voice shaking, but my body wouldn't listen. The thing stepped off the gurney, its movement jerky and unnatural, like a marionette controlled by an unskilled puppeteer. It began to move toward me, its head twitching with every step. Then it stopped. It tilted its head again, as if something had caught its attention, and slowly, it raised one of its impossibly long fingers to point behind me. I didn't want to turn around. I knew I shouldn't, but I did. There, in the hallway, was the figure I'd chased earlier. It was standing motionless, just at the threshold, its silhouette even more unnerving up close. Its body was wrapped in what looked like tattered cloth, its arms hanging unnaturally long at its sides. Its face, or what was left of it, was blank, save for a single, gaping mouth that seemed to stretch wider as I stared. And then it spoke. "Do you see now?" Its voice was layered, deep and echoing, like 100 voices speaking in unison. I stepped back into the room, my back pressing against the wall as the figure took a step forward. I don't know what you're talking about," I stammered, raising my weapon. "You called us here. You opened the door." "What door?" The figure tilted its head in mock curiosity, then raised its hand to point at me. "The one you'll never close." Before I could react, the figure lunged forward, its arms stretching out to an impossible length. The last thing I remember was the sound of the door slamming shut behind me, trapping me in the room with the mannequin-like creature. The door slammed shut, sealing me inside with the monstrosity. My flashlight flickered, barely illuminating the creature that now stood just a few feet away. Its grotesque, mannequin-like frame seemed to absorb the light, its blank face twitching in unnatural spasms. I raised my gun, my hands trembling so violently I could barely keep it steady. "Stay back," I shouted, but my voice cracked halfway through, betraying my fear. The thing cocked its head, as if studying me, then took another step closer. The floor beneath it creaked, the sound amplified in the suffocating silence of the room. The whispers hadn't stopped, they changed. Now they sounded more like voices, overlapping and echoing in a language I couldn't understand. They came from everywhere. The walls, the ceiling, even from within the creature itself. "Please, don't," I muttered, my voice barely audible. And then it spoke again. "You opened the door. Now you'll see what lies beyond it." Its voice was a chorus, low and resonant, and it vibrated through my entire body. Before I could react, the creature lunged, faster than anything that size should have been able to move. I fired. The muzzle flash lit up the room for a split second, and I saw its elongated arm swing toward me. I dove to the side, narrowly avoiding its grasp as the bullets hit its torso. The creature didn't flinch. It didn't even bleed. It just turned its faceless head toward me, as if mocking my attempt to fight back. I scrambled to my feet, my back pressed against the cold, damp wall. My flashlight slipped from my grip and rolled across the floor, casting wild beams of light that only made the room more disorienting. The walls began to shift. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, but then I realized the room was physically changing, stretching, contracting, warping into impossible angles. Doors began to appear on the walls, dozens of them, identical to the ones in the hallway. Each one creaked open slightly, revealing nothing but darkness beyond. I grabbed my flashlight and ran for the nearest door, desperate for an escape. I threw it open and stepped through, only to find myself back in the same room. "No," I whispered, spinning around. The creature was still there, standing in the center of the room, watching me. "You can't leave," it said. I turned and ran for another door, flinging it open with all my strength. Again, I found myself back in the same room, as if the doors were looping me in some twisted labyrinth. The whispers grew louder, almost deafening now. They seemed to be coming from the doors themselves, each one pulsing with an otherworldly energy. And then I realized the voices weren't just whispering. They were chanting. The words started to make sense, piece by piece, like fragments of a puzzle falling into place. They were saying my name. "Officer James Carter, you opened the door. You cannot leave." My blood turned to ice. How did they know my name? The creature took another step toward me, its movements jerky and unnatural. "You wanted answers," it said, its voice layered with malice. "You'll have them." Suddenly, one of the doors slammed shut with a deafening bang. Then another, and another. One by one, the doors around the room closed, each echoing like a gunshot. I was trapped. The creature reached out, its elongated fingers brushing against my shoulder. Instinct took over, and I swung my flashlight at its arm. The light seemed to hurt it, if only slightly. The creature recoiled, its faceless head tilting as if in pain. That's when I noticed it. The light. Every time my flashlight beam hit the creature, it hesitated, its movements slowing just enough for me to gain some distance. I gripped the flashlight tightly, angling the beam directly at its head. The creature screeched, a sound so piercing it felt like my eardrums were about to burst. "Back off," I shouted, moving the beam across its body. The creature stumbled backward, its limbs convulsing as if it was trying to shield itself from the light. The walls began to ripple again, the whispers turning into a cacophony of screams. I didn't wait to see what would happen next. I ran to the door I'd come through, shining my flashlight on it. The handle felt ice cold, but it turned. I stepped through and found myself back in the hallway, but it wasn't the same hallway I'd entered. The walls were covered in black, pulsating veins, and the air felt thick, almost unbreathable. The whispers were still there, but they sounded distant, fading into the background. Behind me, the door slammed shut. I turned, expecting to see the creature, but the door was gone, just a blank wall. For a moment, I just stood there, gasping for air, trying to process what had just happened. My radio crackled to life. "Unit 52, come in. Officer Carter, do you copy?" It was dispatch. I grabbed my radio, my voice shaking. "Dispatch, this is Unit 52. I'm here. Backup is outside. Are you able to exit the building?" I looked down the hallway, which now seemed endless. The pulsating veins on the walls stretched out in both directions, disappearing into darkness. "I don't know," I whispered. The hallway began to change again, the floor tilting slightly, as if urging me forward. I tightened my grip on my flashlight and took a step. "Unit 52, dispatch said again. "You're breaking up. What's your location?" I didn't answer, because at the end of the hallway I saw it. Another door, and from beneath it, a faint, flickering light. I stared at the door at the end of the hallway, its faint flickering light spilling out like a dying heartbeat. The veins on the walls pulsed in time with the glow, as if the building itself was alive and drawing me closer. My feet felt heavier with every step, as though the air had thickened to syrup. Unit 52. The radio crackled again. We're outside the building. Are you injured? What's your location? I brought the radio to my lips, but my voice failed me. What could I even say? That the asylum was alive? That I'd seen something straight out of a nightmare? I squeezed the mic in my hand, the cold plastic grounding me just enough to take another step forward. The door was closer now. It wasn't like the others. It was pristine, untouched by time or decay. Its surface gleamed, almost metallic, and the light beneath it shifted in color, from a dull amber to an unnatural blue. Dispatch. I see a door. I finally whispered into the radio. What door, Carter? Can you exit the building? I don't think it's an exit, I said, my voice trembling. I reached out to touch the handle, hesitating just as my fingers brushed against the cold, smooth metal. The whispers had returned, louder now, bleeding out from the cracks around the doorframe. They weren't incomprehensible this time. They were clear, sharp, and they were saying one thing over and over: don't open it. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back. But something deeper, some twisted, unshakable curiosity, pushed me forward. I had to know what was behind that door. With a deep breath, I turned the handle and pushed it open. The light blinded me at first, sharp and searing, but as my eyes adjusted, I realized I was no longer in the asylum. The room was vast, stretching far beyond what should have been physically possible. The floor was a smooth, black surface that reflected the pulsating light from above. Floating in the air were objects, everyday things like chairs, clocks, and pieces of broken furniture, all spinning slowly in a gravity-defying dance. At the center of the room stood a massive, pulsing orb. It was the same as the ones from Mike's footage, the ones that appeared in the intersections, but this one was different. It was larger, darker, and its surface seemed alive, writhing like a mass of shifting smoke. As I stepped closer, I felt something pulling at me, an invisible force tugging at my chest, my thoughts, my very sense of self. The whispers were louder here, filling my head until I could barely think. Do you see now? The voice was back, layered and resonant, and it came from everywhere at once. What is this place? I shouted, my voice echoing in the cavernous space. This is the door you opened. The door to what lies beneath. Beneath what? Everything. The orb pulsed, and for a brief moment I saw things, horrible things. Cities consumed by shadow. People twisted into monstrous shapes. A black void stretching endlessly, filled with the sounds of screaming. I fell to my knees, clutching my head as the visions assaulted me. Close it, I screamed. I didn't mean to open anything. Just let me close it. The orb pulsed again, and the whispers shifted, almost laughing. It's too late. The door cannot be closed. You've seen too much. The room began to change. The floating objects started to spin faster, crashing into one another and shattering into fragments. The ground beneath me rippled like water, and the light from the orb grew brighter, almost unbearable. I tried to stand, but the force pulling at me was too strong. I could feel myself being drawn closer to the orb, my body sliding across the smooth floor. No! I shouted, digging my nails into the ground, desperate to resist. Then, out of nowhere, I heard it. A new sound. Footsteps. I turned my head and saw them. Other officers. My backup. They were standing at the doorway I'd come through, their faces pale and their weapons drawn. Carter! One of them shouted, stepping into the room. What the hell is this? Don't come in! I screamed, but it was too late. The moment they stepped inside, the orb reacted. Its surface rippled violently, and tendrils of black smoke shot out, lashing toward the officers. One of them fired his weapon, the bullet disappearing into the void of the orb without a trace. The tendrils wrapped around them, dragging them toward the center of the room. Their screams filled the air, mixing with the whispers, and I could do nothing but watch in horror as they were pulled into the orb, one by one. "No!" I shouted, tears streaming down my face. The last officer, Sergeant Ramirez, locked eyes with me as the tendrils wrapped around his neck. "Run!" he choked out before disappearing into the void. The orb pulsed again, and the room began to collapse. The walls folded in on themselves, the ceiling cracking and falling away to reveal an endless black sky. I forced myself to my feet, using every ounce of strength I had left. The door was still open, the faint glow of the asylum hallway beckoning me. I ran. Behind me, I heard the orb's whispers turn into an ear-splitting roar, and when I crossed the threshold of the door, I felt a surge of energy hit me like a wave, throwing me to the ground. When I looked up, I was back in the asylum's lobby. The door was gone, replaced by a blank wall. The building was silent. My radio crackled. "Unit 52, do you copy? What's your status?" I didn't answer. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what had just happened. I don't know how long I stayed there, but eventually other officers found me. They didn't believe my story, not completely, but they couldn't explain the missing officers or the strange burn marks on the floor where the door had been. I quit the force the next day, but sometimes late at night, I hear the whispers again. They're waiting for me. It's been 6 months since that night at the Franklin Asylum. 6 months since I walked through a door I should have never touched. 6 months since I watched my fellow officers, good men and women, disappear into that impossible, writhing void. I've replayed that night over and over in my head, trying to make sense of it. Was it real? Did I imagine the entire thing? The department conducted an investigation, of course. I sat through hours of questioning, detailing everything I'd seen. But no one believed me. Not really. The official report said the missing officers were victims of an unexplained structural collapse within the asylum. Convenient, clean, and completely false. After I quit the force, I tried to move on. I packed my things, left the city, and started a new life in a small, quiet town far away. A place where the only lights at night are the stars, and the only sounds are crickets and the occasional howl of a coyote. But the whispers followed me. At first, they were faint, just a soft murmur at the edge of my hearing. I told myself it was nothing, just my nerves or the lingering trauma of that night. But over time, they grew louder, clearer. They speak to me in fragments, scattered and cryptic. "You open the door. It cannot be closed. We are coming." I hear them when I'm alone, in the dead of night, when the world is silent and my mind is desperate for rest. They creep in. And it's not just the whispers. I started seeing things too. Shadows that shouldn't be there. Flickers of movement in my peripheral vision. Once, I woke up in the middle of the night to find my bedroom door open, even though I'd locked it before going to bed. And then there are the dreams. In the dreams, I'm back in the asylum. The hallway stretches endlessly, the walls pulsating like a living thing. The doors are all open, and from each one, a figure steps out. They're the officers who were taken, the ones I couldn't save. But they're not themselves anymore. Their faces are blank, their movements jerky and unnatural. They speak in that same layered, inhuman voice, saying the same thing over and over. "You let them in." I always wake up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding like a drum. But the worst part is what comes after. The moments when I'm still lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself it was just a dream. Because that's when I hear it. The faint sound of footsteps, not inside the house but outside. They circle the house slowly, deliberately, crunching on the gravel driveway. Sometimes they stop right outside my bedroom window. I can feel them watching me, even though I'm too afraid to look. One night, I finally mustered the courage to check. I pulled back the curtain just enough to peek outside. What I saw will haunt me forever. There was a figure standing in the driveway, silhouetted against the moonlight. It was tall and impossibly thin, its arms hanging down past its knees. Its head was tilted at an unnatural angle, as if it were trying to decide whether to approach. And then it moved, not toward the house but toward the woods. Its long limbs swayed unnaturally as it disappeared into the darkness. The next morning, I found footprints in the gravel. They were long and narrow, like they'd been made by something with elongated toes. That's when I realized the truth. The door wasn't just a portal. It was a beacon. Whatever was on the other side, it knows about me. It knows I've seen it. And now it's coming for me. I've tried everything to protect myself. I've sealed the windows, barricaded the doors, even burned sage like some kind of lunatic. But nothing works. The whispers are louder than ever now, constant and insistent. They tell me to come back, to return to the asylum, to finish what I started. I don't know how much longer I can hold out. Sometimes I catch myself standing by the front door, my hand on the knob, as if I'm about to leave, as if something is pulling me, guiding me back to that place. And here's the thing, I'm not afraid anymore. I should be terrified, but I'm not. Because deep down, I think I understand now. The door wasn't just a mistake. It was meant for me. If you're reading this and you ever hear whispers you can't explain, do yourself a favor. Don't follow them. Don't open the door. Because once you do, there's no going back. I thought I could ignore it. I thought I could outlast it. But the door, the one I saw that night at the Franklin Asylum, has a way of digging into your mind like a splinter buried too deep to pull out. The whispers haven't stopped. They're no longer faint murmurs in the dead of night. They're a chorus now, growing louder with each passing day. Sometimes they sound like the officers who disappeared. Sometimes they sound like my own voice, but warped, distorted, as though something is mocking me. The worst part? I've started dreaming while I'm awake. I'll be standing in my kitchen, pouring coffee, and suddenly I'm back in that hallway. The walls stretch and pulse. The doors slam open and shut, and I can feel the weight of something watching me from behind. Then I blink, and I'm back in my house, the coffee pot overflowing in my trembling hands. A few nights ago, I woke up to find a single black mark on the wall above my bed. At first, I thought it was just a smudge, maybe from my hand, but when I looked closer, I realized it was a fingerprint. Long, narrow, inhuman. I scrubbed it off, but the next night it was back. This time there were two. It's leaving marks now. Signs. Warnings. I've tried calling people, friends, former colleagues, anyone who might believe me, but every time I pick up the phone, I hear static. And beneath the static, faint and almost imperceptible, are the whispers. You must come back. It won't stop until you return. Tonight, the whispers became something else. They became clear. They told me the door had opened again. Franklin, the door calls for you. I don't know why I listened. I should have ignored it. I should have burned the asylum to the ground when I had the chance. But something deep inside me, something I can't explain, compelled me to grab my keys, get in my car, and drive. The roads were empty, but I wasn't alone. The shadows that flickered along the edges of my headlights felt alive. I saw figures in the trees lining the highway, their elongated shapes watching as I sped past. Once, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw something in the back seat, a distorted face staring back at me. I didn't stop. By the time I reached the asylum, the fog had rolled in thick, swallowing the building in a ghostly haze. The parking lot was empty, the same cracked pavement from months ago stretching out like a welcome mat. The whispers grew louder as I stepped out of the car, almost drowning out the sound of my boots crunching on the gravel. When I reached the front door, it was already open. Inside, the air was colder than I remembered, thick with the scent of damp stone and decay. My flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing the same overturned gurneys and shattered glass from before. But this time the building felt alive. The walls pulsed faintly, like they were breathing. And from somewhere deep within, I heard the rhythmic tapping, the same sound I'd heard the first night. "Hello!" I called out, my voice echoing down the empty halls. The tapping stopped, and then, faintly at first, I heard footsteps. I turned, shining my flashlight into the darkness behind me. The beam landed on a figure standing at the end of the hall. It was tall and thin, its arms hanging unnaturally low, its head tilted in that familiar, unnatural way. I raised my flashlight higher, and the beam flickered, sputtering in and out. The figure began to move, not walking but gliding, its feet never touching the ground. As it drew closer, I saw its face, or what should have been a face. Its features were gone, replaced by a smooth, blank surface that seemed to ripple like water. I stumbled back, the whispers now a deafening roar in my ears. "You've come back," the figure said, its voice layered and reverberating, just like before. I gripped my flashlight tightly, trying to keep my hand steady. "What do you want from me?" The figure tilted its head, as though amused. "You were chosen. You opened the door. Now you will see what lies beyond." Before I could respond, the walls of the hallway began to shift, twisting and bending into impossible angles. Doors appeared on either side of me, their surfaces covered in claw marks and symbols I couldn't understand. The figure raised one elongated arm and pointed to the door at the far end of the hallway. "It's time." I didn't want to go. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around and run. But my legs moved on their own, carrying me down the twisting hallway toward the door. It was the same door from before, the pristine one, untouched by time or decay. This faint glow seemed to pulse in time with my heartbeat. I reached out, my hand trembling as I gripped the handle. Behind me, the whispers turned into screams. "Go!" I opened the door, and on the other side was nothing but darkness. Not just an absence of light, it was deeper than that. A void that seemed to pull at the edges of reality itself. I stepped through, and the door slammed shut behind me. That's where I am now. In the dark, in the silence. But I'm not alone. They're here with me. The figures, the whispers, the things I can't see but can feel pressing against my skin. And they're telling me one thing over and over. You opened the door. Now you're the one who keeps it. If you're reading this, and you ever find yourself near the Franklin Asylum, don't go inside. Don't listen to the whispers. Don't open the door. Because if you do, you won't ever come back. It's been a week, I think. Or maybe it's been years. Time doesn't exist here, not in the way it does out there. It's just an endless stretch of dark silence, broken only by the whispers. They never stop. They never let me rest. First, I fought it. I screamed into the void, demanding answers, demanding to be set free. But the whispers only laughed. They told me freedom was never an option. Not for someone who had opened the door. You are part of it now, they said. You belong to the door. I've come to understand what they mean. The door wasn't just an entry point. It was a bridge, a way for whatever lies beyond to seep into our world. And when I stepped through it, I became part of that bridge, a thread woven into the fabric of something far bigger than I could ever comprehend. But the worst part? I'm not the only one here. I see them sometimes, in the corners of this endless darkness. The other officers, Ramirez, Jenkins, even Captain Morris. Their faces are blank now, their movements stiff and unnatural. They shuffle through the void like puppets with invisible strings, their whispers blending into the chorus. Carter, they call to me. You can't fight it. Just let go. I won't. I can't. Because I know the truth now. The door isn't just some random anomaly, some cosmic mistake. It's intentional. It's hungry. And it uses people like me, people who stumble across it, who are curious or foolish enough to open it, as its bait. It doesn't just take us. It uses us to lure others in. Every time someone hears the whispers or sees the strange lights, it's because of me. Because I'm here, keeping the door open, keeping the cycle going. But there's one thing the whispers didn't account for. I'm not ready to give up. Not yet. I've started to notice something. Patterns in the darkness, faint trails of light that flicker and fade as I move through this void. At first, I thought they were just illusions, tricks played by my fractured mind. But now I understand. They're cracks. The door isn't perfect, can be broken. It's risky, maybe even impossible. But I've started to pull at the cracks, to widen them, to tear at the fabric of this place with everything I have. The whispers scream at me when I do it, their voices filled with rage and panic. You can't. You don't understand what you're doing. But I don't care. If I can destroy the door, Even for a moment, I can stop it. I can keep it from luring anyone else in. I can finally end this. Tonight, I felt something shift. The darkness trembled, and the cracks in the void spread like spiderwebs. The whispers have grown frantic, their once taunting tones now filled with fear. "You'll destroy everything," they scream. Good. I don't know what will happen when I break the door. Maybe it will collapse this entire place, erasing me and everyone else trapped here. Maybe it will unleash something even worse. But it's a chance I have to take. If you're reading this, it means I've succeeded. It means the door is gone. And if you're hearing whispers, if you feel something pulling you toward the asylum, then it means I've failed. Because that's the thing about the door, it doesn't stop. It just waits for the next person foolish enough to open it. This is my final warning. Don't listen to the whispers. Don't follow the lights. And whatever you do, don't open the door.